This hour of the Costa Report is brought to you by Dole Food Company, the world's leading producer and distributor of fresh fruits and vegetables.
Welcome to the Costa Report. I'm Rebecca Costa, and thank you for joining me for another 2 hours of Straight Talk Radio. I want to take a moment to welcome the IBM Corporation as a new sponsor of the Costa Report, which is now available on radio stations across the country and on the internet on the Voice America Business Channel. The Costa Report is now one of the fastest growing talk shows in the nation, and if by some slim chance you live in an area where you don't receive this broadcast, well, here's what you do. You pick up the phone and you call your favorite station and you tell them that you want Straight Talk Radio in your area. And speaking of Straight Talk, our guest this hour has the distinction of being the longest-serving United States Secretary of Transportation. In just a moment, Mr. Norman Mineta will be joining us to talk about why the biggest threat to airports may not be inside the terminal, but the porous area around the perimeter instead. But before Mineta joins us, as is my custom each week, let me give you a little background about his unusual journey to our nation's capital. Norman Yoshio Mineta was born and raised in San Jose, California. During World War II, Mineta and his family were forced to leave their family business and home to relocate to a Japanese internment camp near Cody, Wyoming, an experience which left an indelible impression on the young Mineta. Once released from internment, the family returned to San Jose, where Mineta graduated high school and later attended the University of California at Berkeley, where he received his degree in business administration. Mineta immediately joined the United States Army, serving as an intelligence officer in Japan and Korea. And following military service, Mineta joined his family's insurance business and began serving on the Human Relations Commission in San Jose. Then in 1967, he was appointed to fill a vacancy on the San Jose City Council, which became a permanent position when he ran for and won an election for that seat. The rest is a matter of public record. Mineta became the 59th mayor of San Jose and the first Asian American mayor of a major U.S. city. In 1975, he was elected to the United States House of Representatives, where he became chairman of the House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure. By 1995, Mineta was ready to return to civilian life, and he joined Lockheed Martin as vice president. And that should have been that. Then in 2000, he was appointed by President Clinton to become Secretary of Commerce. And with that appointment, Mineta became the first Asian American to hold a presidential cabinet position. In 2001, Mineta was appointed Secretary of Transportation by President George Bush, becoming the only Democrat to serve in Bush's cabinet. As Secretary of Transportation, it was Mineta's responsibility to order all planes to be grounded during the 9/11 attacks. And Mineta was also largely responsible for the formation of the TSA, something we'll hear more about later in the program. In 2006, Mineta resigned from his government post, breaking yet another record, the longest-sitting Secretary of Transportation in our nation's history. He joined Hill and Knowlton and continues to advise on security and transportation issues. I understand from our engineers at the moment that Mr. Mineta's phone line was disconnected, and they're trying to get him back on the line as we speak. You know, this is the thing I love about live radio. You know, what happens? You plan, you prepare for it, the guest is ready, and then the technical bugs just get you. They just get you, don't they, Sam?
Sometimes they do, yeah.
They do. And, you know, what are you going to do? There's nothing you can do other than to let the audience know that that the longest running Secretary of the Transportation is not in charge of radio airwaves. That we can tell people, because if he was, he'd get a little he'd get a few complaints.
He'd fix us up
in a hurry, wouldn't he?
Yeah,
that's right. You know what I found so amazing about Mr. Mineta is his background. After his family was moved to an internment camp, after being stripped of all their rights, after having to shut down the family business, leave their home, It was amazing that Mr. Mineta's father worked for military intelligence from within the internment camp. And what was even more spectacular was the fact that Mr. Mineta himself has devoted his life to public service in spite of that background. So I understand that we have Mr. Mineta on the line now.
We sure do.
Well, it's my pleasure to welcome to the program one of our greatest examples of a nonpartisan approach to solving problems, Mr. Norman Mineta. Thank you for being with us, Mr. Mineta.
I apologize for being late. I was caught in traffic trying to rush back to the house to be here by 5, but unfortunately, if we had a Secretary of Transportation who might have taken care of transportation issues, I might have been on time.
Well, that's a good point. That just makes the point that we need you back in office so we can take care of these traffic problems. The first thing I want to do is congratulate you on getting the TSA up and fully functional in just 1 year. That was a tremendous undertaking, and these days we seem to be able to get very little done in Washington, and I think it's important to point out successes like the TSA. Despite the complaints of long lines and delays, there has not been another incidence of hijacking, and that is very hard to argue with. So let's talk about the big elephant in the room, airport perimeters. How concerned should we be about the ease of getting on airport property?
Well, we should be concerned about it, and the problem is that the basic responsibility for perimeter security is left up to the individual airports and is not mandated in any way by federal law. Now, there are certain requirements in terms of what has to be done, but basically the implementation is really done by the local airports. And given the fiscal condition of most local airports, that becomes a low priority item. So unfortunately, it's not one that gets to the top of the list.
I understand, and as I understand it, there are about 450 commercial airports, and as you point out, they're all responsible for their own budget, their own plan for securing the perimeter or lack of. Is there any reason that we don't extend the scope of what the TSA is responsible for and put the TSA in charge of best practices for perimeter securing or something along those lines?
I think at the time, as the legislation for the whole Transportation Security Administration was being formulated, the question was how much is available and what are the areas that we ought to be putting the emphasis and the priorities. So most of it was on getting the screeners at the commercial airports by November 17th, 2002, which was to give us 1 year to have everybody in place. And we essentially went from 0 employees to about 67,000 in 1 year. The second part of that was by December 31 of 2002, we had to have explosive detection systems at all the commercial airports. And it was sort of interesting because the best machine that was being made at the time was done by a small company whose production efforts probably at the time were capable of producing maybe 13 to 15 machines a month, and we needed 3,700 machines in a year and 1 month. So what I did was to call Jeff Immelt, the CEO of GE, and ask him if I could get the licensing rights for this machine. Could you help us produce these in sufficient numbers to have them in place by December 31?
Now, we have to take a short commercial break, so when we come back on the other end of the break, let's continue to hear about that licensing agreement and where that took the TSA. You're listening to the Costa Report.
Do you love creating salads as much as you enjoy eating them? Hi, I'm Amy Tobin, cookbook author and culinary expert. Dole inspires fresh and wholesome dishes for any meal with their wide selection of salad blends and all-natural salad kits. From the mild and tender texture of sweet butter lettuce to the crunch of classic romaine sprinkled with colorful shredded carrots and red cabbage, Dole has over 30 salad blends to satisfy every palate. If you're looking for the ultimate in convenience, try Dole's unique salad kit combinations that include farm-fresh lettuces and vegetables, mouth-watering all-natural toppings, and specially made dressings. It's all you need to make a distinctively delicious salad. The possibilities are endless. Visit www.dolesalads.com for recipes and other ideas to feed your culinary imagination.
Did you know that every day we create 2.5 quintillion bytes of data, and that 90% of the data in the world today has been created in the last 2 years alone? This data comes from everywhere, and it affects everyone. This data is big data. Big data is all data, and it's more than simply a matter of size. Big data represents an opportunity to uncover new insights, make your business more agile, and answer questions that were previously beyond your reach. IBM's Big Data platform uses sophisticated technologies and patented advanced analytics designed to complement your existing information infrastructure. The IBM Big Data platform allows you to get started quickly today and expand to address more complex problems tomorrow. It doesn't matter where you start, it matters that you start. Find out how IBM can help you turn big data into a competitive advantage by visiting ibm.com/bigdata today.
Hi, I'm Andy, the produce manager at Ben Lomond Market. This week we are featuring California Sweet Mini Seedless Watermelons, 2 for $5, California Raspberries, 2 baskets for $5, and California Red or Green Seedless Grapes, $1.49 a pound. Fall items have started to arrive. California Italian Prunes, 99 cents a pound. California Red Globe Grapes, $1.99 a pound, and California Gravenstein apples, $1.69 a pound. From Mexico, we have tender asparagus tips, $3.49 a pound. In organics, red or green seedless grapes, $1.99 a pound. California pluots, $1.49 a pound, and California organic heirloom tomatoes, $3.69 a pound. We have many more specials in our produce department, so come, check out our great selection of fresh produce at Ben Lomond Market.
I bet you we're going to do 25 now, 50 now, 75, we're going to go 300, 325, 350, 375, we're going to go 400, 425, 450. Imagine finding an old painting or chair or fishing lure while rummaging through the attic. Is it junk or is it hidden treasure? Hello, I'm Rob Slowinski of Slowinski Auctions and Appraisers in Scotts Valley. Before you throw that item out, you better make certain it's not hidden treasure, and the way to do that is to join me at 2 p.m. Saturday afternoon here at KSCO for Hidden Treasures Radio Show. Put that item on the table in front of you and call the show. We'll figure out what that item is, where it came from, what it's worth, give or take, so don't throw that item out. Instead, join me, Rob Slowinski of Slowinski Auction Company, Saturday afternoon at 2 p.m. for Hidden Treasures Radio Show. Is it junk or is it hidden treasure?
Welcome back to the Costa Report. I'm Rebecca Costa, and my guest is former United States Secretary of Transportation, Mr. Norman Mineta. And before the break, we were talking about how the company, which was producing the screening equipment needed by the TSA, couldn't ramp up production fast enough. So the government approached the company and asked if they could obtain a license. And on that cliffhanger, we had to go to a commercial break. So let you continue from there.
So we were successful in getting a licensing agreement, and GE was able to produce the roughly 3,700 machines that we needed by December 31 of 2002. And interestingly enough, about 2 years after we got that licensing agreement for them, GE actually bought the company, because there wasn't that much difference between what that company was doing and the CAT scans that GE was producing. So it fit into their business model as well. So GE did end up buying the company.
Mm-hmm. So back to the TSA and their responsibilities, it almost feels like the TSA pretty much stopped it inside the terminal, and that there hasn't been any movement in terms of moving outside to the perimeter area and taking measures to protect that perimeter.
They do deal with the outside in terms of the tarmac around the terminal buildings, but you're right about perimeter security. That really doesn't fall as a responsibility for issuing rules and regulations on minimum standards that are required on port. Now, there are minimum standards. It's the enhanced standards that are left up to the local airports.
Just to give our audience a little bit of an idea of how big those perimeters are, for a mid-size airport, I believe that you say it's about 15 miles of perimeter that have to be protected. And when you count 450 commercial airports in 15 miles, that's a lot of mileage to protect. It starts looking like our borders.
Right, and we did have an incident not too long ago where there was someone on a jet ski who got onto the LaGuardia airport property and crossed something like 3 runways in order to get to where he was going. I think he ran out of gas on his jet ski. But you know, if that happens, and the young man was not apprehended until he got very close to the terminal building, I mean, that really speaks loudly about what ought to be done to protect to enhance and increase the security in terms of perimeter security.
Now, there have been reports of drivers crashing through fences and driving onto the runway in Philadelphia, Miami, Dallas, and other airports. Is there any such thing as a best practices standard or anything that the federal government is issuing to airports to help them move to a more advanced security system?
I don't believe so. I think they have some minimum requirements, and that probably amounts to maybe chain link fencing. But I know here at the National Airport along the Potomac, I don't believe there's even chain link fencing along that shoreline. So,
now, chain link fencing sounds pretty primitive to me. I mean, you could just cut through that, or just a regular truck, a worker truck can just blow right through a chain link fence. You've pointed out that a few airports have taken steps to use software that will detect threats coming from a standoff distance, and that those systems are tied into quick response by police and emergency workers. Can you talk about some of those advanced systems for a moment?
Well, and one of the great things about American companies is they're very, very innovative, and they come forth with a lot of ideas when there are issues pending. So there are things that companies make that may be applicable to, let's say, border protection along our southern border, and some of that technology is being used to help airports, so that whether it's heat seeking or whether it's pressure, people walking, coming close to a perimeter area, it's among some of the more, I guess I would describe it as the larger commercial hubs that are more attentive to a lot of these issues, including perimeter security.
Right, because, looking at it as a layman, once the threat is at the chain link fence, it's a little bit late because there's not enough distance there and time-wise to respond preemptively. So you really have to look beyond the chain link fence and see the threat coming, don't you?
They do have maybe, let's say, 3 areas or 3 layers of obstacles that people have to go through. It may be, and they may have the chain link fencing in 3 areas, backed up to each other. So it's not so much the methodology, like is chain link fencing adequate by itself in one chain link fence around the perimeter is not enough. But if they have, let's say, 3 sets of chain link fencing with pressure devices or closed circuit television or other, then it becomes a formidable barrier. But again, I think those really are more dependent on what the local airport considers to be their vulnerabilities in terms of priority. And so if you're right by a highway, I would imagine they would want to be much more attentive to perimeter security as compared to someone that may be further out from populated areas.
Yes, as you point out, there are a lot of similarities between the technologies that would be used to protect a large perimeter area for an airport, as well as border control and border safety, isn't there?
There is. And that's why, TSA is under the Department of Homeland Security, so that there can be that kind of crossing of ideas, so that Border Patrol might say, well, TSA, what about what we're using here? It may be applicable that you can use in your area.
Exactly.
Again, but the thing is, there are no federal grant programs that would subsidize the local airport in terms of enhancing their perimeter security. That's still left up to the local authority. Whereas with explosive devices or other things that are necessary for processing passengers or cargo, there are grant programs to financially assist the local airports.
Okay, well, we have to take another commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the role solar energy is playing in transportation. You're listening to the Costa Report. I'm here today with Scott Caraccioli of Caraccioli Cellars. Now, everyone knows that my favorite is your Pinot Noir, but Caraccioli's known for a lot more than that.
It's really the bubbles that kind of differentiates what we're doing in the area as opposed to a lot of our peers. And the way that we looked at it was there's great Chardonnay and Pinot Noir fruit in the Santa Lucia Highlands in the greater Monterey County, and we wanted to be able to utilize those grapes and showcase them in a little bit different light. And to do that comes a little bit of a laborious process in terms of making sparkling wine and doing
a little bit?
A lot of it, but still definitely worth the trouble and worth the wait. We're currently selling 2006 and 2007 sparkling wines in the beginning of 2013. So it kind of tells you the time invested as well as all of the different techniques that we use and Michelle implements to ensure that we're delivering a quality product.
Thank you for being with us again, Scott.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Research shows it's not just what you put in your body that counts, it's what you put on it as well. Why not use an all-natural, healthy, mineral-based makeup that actually benefits your skin? Once you experience the airiness and flawless coverage of Youngevity mineral makeup, you will never use anything else. With Youngevity, the perception of your complexion will be natural perfection. Animal-friendly mineral makeup at Mary Lou Health. That's MARILUHealth.com. Or call 855-321-HEALTH.
Hey, buddy, it's me, your laptop. That's right, your little modern marvel of technology you've been abusing for months. Dude, we need to talk. Do you really think that those free PC Fix-It programs are any match for today's spyware and malware? Not to mention the NSA and some of those websites you've been visiting. Now, I'm not here to judge, I'm just saying. You need to take me to Peter and the friendly staff at User Friendly Computing to get me back into tip-top shape.
Tired of unfriendly computer support, slow computer, viruses, spyware? No problem. Call the friendly computer experts at User Friendly Computing. We take care of all your PC, Macintosh, and laptop needs. Mention KSCO and get a free $50 diagnostic. Visit us today at 505 River Street on the way to downtown Santa Cruz, across from Gateway Plaza. We give you a choice. Drop your computer by the shop, or we'll come to you. Call us today at 423-9653. User Friendly Computing.
Coast Paper and Supply has been family-owned and operated since 1948. They have a wide array of products available, including brand name and eco-friendly cleaning supplies, paper goods, and compostable plates, cups, and cutlery. Whether your needs are for business or home, Coast Paper and Supply's friendly and reliable staff have what you're looking for. They even accommodate special orders. You can find them at 151 Josephine on River Street in Santa Cruz, Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 4:30, or call at 831-423-3350. Coast Paper and Supply is a proud member of Think Local First.
Listen to Links That Stink with Hellbard Wednesdays at 7:15 a.m. on Good Morning Monterey Bay.
Okay, that was a very complicated page. This one isn't.
Well, yeah, it is. It's in a different language.
But if you know what it is...
Different language.
If you know what it is...
It looks like a potty training tool for kids, right?
It's a doll that passes gas.
Oh, really?
Yes.
It's a girl doll that passes gas.
Yes.
Get it right.
And
it's Korean, okay.
What do you mean, okay? Like that? Like all their dolls pass gas? Oh, it's Korean.
It makes
yes.
sense now.
But the eyes on the doll aren't Korean.
What do you mean? They're too round?
Yes.
Well, most Asian animation has very wide eyes.
You know,
most of the dolls have very wide eyes.
If I was a doll that passed gas, my eyes would rocket open too.
Right.
That's Links That Stink, literally, every Wednesday at 7:15 a.m. on Good Morning Monterey Bay and KSCO AM 1080.
Welcome back to the Costa Report. I'm Rebecca Costa, and my guest today is America's first Asian American presidential cabinet member, former Secretary of Transportation, Mr. Norman Mineta. And just a few moments ago, we were talking about the fact that there are federal grants available for airports to increase security where passenger and cargo screening's available. But these grants don't extend to perimeter protection. And this sounds like an area where perhaps government grants may need to be extended. Would you agree?
Well, and I think it's going to get even more difficult in terms of what kind of financing is available for local airports, given the sequestration that's going on throughout the federal government. Mm-hmm. And so no one is really immune from these cuts, including Department of Defense. And so even the Department of Homeland Security is going to be hit with some very deep cuts in terms of sequestration. So I'm not sanguine about any new programs that would assist local airports.
So you feel that this will be exacerbated by the sequestration?
It will be. I believe so. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I see. Well, just to finish up on the security issues surrounding airports, are you satisfied with the progress you're seeing, or are we becoming lackadaisical as we get further and further away from 9/11?
Well, that is always a danger that we have about the success of TSA. As you mentioned, since September 11 of 2001, we have not had, knock on wood, any major security breaches. But that's because TSA and the Department of Homeland Security is constantly looking at those areas in terms of where are their own vulnerabilities. And, again, part of this, the public may become more lackadaisical, but I don't believe the people at TSA or the Department of Homeland Security are. And that's why one of the reasons I wanted to originally have on the ticket where the tax that was being imposed for the security fee, I wanted it to be the 9/11 fee.
Yes.
Just to remind everybody that they were really, that part of their funds were going towards the security of the airports, and that I just wanted everyone to know, every time they bought a ticket, that the tragedy of 9/11 was what was prompting this tax on their ticket.
It would be a good reminder. I think as we do get further and further away from that tragic day, we get a little bit relaxed, and that's not such a good thing. I find people getting annoyed in the TSA lines for the delays and the length of the lines. And, and the fact is, it's one of the few things that we have done in our government that has actually empirically worked. And so, it would be nice for people to be a little bit more patient and appreciative, I think. So, what do you say to Americans who object to being screened at airports, or they're worried about the fact that, this is going to open up the door to be screened in every other place and it's some infringement on the expectation of privacy?
Well, I suppose part of that is we all have a responsibility in a democracy to sacrifice a little bit for the greater good. And so, yes, there are inconveniences that we may experience, but to the extent that it is not let's say, a constitutional violation, or to the extent that it is not a overreach, I just believe that Americans feel more secure. I think it's a very small percentage of people who might be belly aching in the lines, but I think that just where they keep it to themselves. And they may mutter it out loud for someone else to hear, but I don't believe they really go out to do anything to try to change it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So now let's move on to the future of transportation. The cost of transporting goods affects every area of the economy, and so much of that cost is tied to fuel. In May, we had the good fortune of witnessing a completely solar-powered airplane called the Solar Impulse take off from the West Coast across the country and land in New York. And now Alaska Airlines is testing solar power ramps at Seattle, Tacoma, and also your namesake airport in San Jose. That said, we seem to be slow to be making the change despite the benefits to the economy and environment, and to the larger issues of security, which is becoming less dependent on foreign oil. So what can we do to incentivize and motivate a quicker transition to solar transportation?
And solar, even in terms of utilization, really is a small percentage of our total energy bill. And, whether it's solar farms offshore generating electricity, and then people say, let's say if there were wind turbine farms that were built off of the Big Sur coast, there are people who would just really raise their ire about that, just as they did when the possibility of building wind farms off of Nantucket, as I recall, and there was a great hue and cry about it. But again, we do have to look at all alternative energy sources, whether it be natural gas or liquid natural gas or energy forms, including solar. And but I haven't seen, again, the kind of incentives to be able to encourage entrepreneurs to come forward with big programs.
You're right. There's no incentive. And the incentives aren't large enough. Earlier this year, Belgium began operating its first solar-powered trains. And they mounted panels above 2 miles of track, and they're now providing energy for, I believe it's 400 trains in Belgium. And since 2009, we've been talking about a high-speed solar-powered railway in the United States. So what's the status of that? Is that going to come to fruition, or are we out of money?
I'm not sure of the specifics on that solar high-speed rail train, but the whole issue of trying to build the initial one, those are the most costly, because as you build more and more of whatever it is, the costs go down. But the initial costs for these are really great, whether they're maglev trains, maglev personal transport systems. How much has Google put into their self-driving automobile?
That's a good point.
What's the marketplace for that? I'd love to get in a car and sit down and play bridge with you as we speed along the highway going from San Jose to Big Sur, but I'm not sure that we're going to see that in the near future.
Well, I don't know. Every prediction I've made about technology has been wrong. I always say to people it's 1 or 2 or 3 years out, and then 3 months later I walk into Best Buy and there it is. So I'm not going to make any more predictions about when technology will be actually available to the consumer, because my timeline has always historically been wrong. I always think it's going to take longer than it is. But I will tell you that I wasn't wrong about solar. We were talking about solar energy when I was in high school, and I don't even want to count how many years ago that was. Now, we have to take our last break, so stay right where you are. We'll be right back with Norm Mineta. You're listening to the Costa Report.
As many of us age, we are now facing the prospect of making sure our final wishes are carried out if we become seriously ill. We worry that even if we've selected healthcare agents, our healthcare documents may not be available when they're needed most. Hello, my name is John Lawton. I'm an elder law attorney and have been helping families in our community make sure that their final wishes are carried out. There are simple ways to do this, but unfortunately they aren't widely followed. I see cases every day where families could have protected themselves and didn't. Call me at 831-649-1122 or visit my website at estateplan-lawyers.com. That number again is 831-649-1122. There's no need to put your peace of mind at risk. Make that call today.
What does your website do for you? Does it simplify doing business and automate routine tasks? Does it connect with your target audience and bring new business? If you can't answer yes, then you need to contact Sunstar Media. Located on the Monterey Peninsula for over 17 years, Sunstar Media has developed websites for startups, brick-and-mortar stores, to corporations on the stock market. What makes Sunstar different is the customization that goes into every site, tailored to each client's unique needs and vision. Sunstar's experienced pros keep you ahead of the game with their custom-fit development process for website applications that cater to your company's specific needs. Learn more at sunstarmedia.com. Mention you heard this ad on the Rebecca Costa Show and get a free web analysis report on your current site or a free web consultation for your next project. Let's discuss how Sunstar can help you. Reach out to us at sunstarmedia.com.
My name is Mickey Phelps here from Crown Cafe and Scotts Valley Market. I just wanted to let you know that Scotts Valley Market has some amazing prices on meat and produce and, of course, throughout the store. Jared and his crew from the meat department will be more than happy to cut a nice filet mignon to your liking. Also, Scotts Valley Market has an amazing hot food bar, and also we make some of the best sandwiches in town, like the Irish. So, folks, come on in and you'll find out that Scotts Valley Market has some amazing everyday deals. Also, at Scotts Valley Market, be sure to look for those yellow tags. That's where you're going to save a lot of money. And we'll be sure that we are very competitive with other grocery stores out there. What makes us different is that we are local and family owned. So come on in. And while you're there, be sure to ask for Mickey. And don't forget that if you need any catering, give Crown Cafe a call at 831-566-1425. 831-566-1425.
Start your morning with the Mary Lou Show. with your host, Mary Lou Henner, on KONY AM 1340, Monday through Friday from 5 to 8 a.m.
Speaking of going to Nova Scotia, I'm going because I'm involved with a company that's doing a vegan fish oil, Ascenta. They're really great. I love their vegan fish oil. I'm doing a project with them. I also love longevity for supplements and things. We're going to do a whole show both on longevity and on Ascenta. But yesterday I was doing a photo session for some of the ads we're doing for the vegan fish oil. And it was really a lot of fun to do that. So we're going to be posting pictures on that as well. Sometimes that's the hardest part of a job is looking good. I think that's why I'm enjoying this radio show. Although we are going to be putting cameras in here very soon, so you'll be able to get to watch us.
Every morning, Mary Lou will share with you her zest for life that embraces health, nutrition, and a physically active lifestyle. So tune in the Mary Lou Show, weekday mornings from 5 to 8 a.m. on KONY AM 1340.
Welcome back to the Costa Report. I'm Rebecca Costa, and my guest today is Norman Mineta. So I'd like to ask you a few questions about leadership, because you've been one of those rare cabinet members who's worked for both a Democratic and Republican president and also managed to get such a large initiative like the TSA up and running in just 12 months. But there's no argument that we're paralyzed by partisan theater these days. How do you see this situation, and how do we get moving again?
Well, I think that part of the process, or part of the problem, is the process. In Congress today, members in the House, their first vote is on Tuesday at 6:30, and I believe the last vote is about 3 o'clock on Thursday. And when I got there in 1974, it was Speaker Albert then, but Speaker O'Neill, Speaker Wright, required us to be, our first vote was on Monday at 12 noon. The last vote was on Friday at 3 p.m. Mm-hmm. So we were there 5 days, and then on the weekends, then people would be able to get back to their constituency in the districts. Mm-hmm. But today, and part of it is economic in the sense that the cost of housing in the D.C. area is so high that members get elected and they leave their families in their home districts, and they don't move them to the D.C. area as I did in 1974. So you don't get to build a personal relationship. And we used to be able to argue in subcommittee, full committee, the rules committee, on the floor about any given issue, and yet slap each other on the back and say, come on, let's go have a drink or let's go out to dinner. Mm-hmm. And that really doesn't occur today. There are some people who are trying to get some camaraderie. And the other thing is, I think compromise is a bad word. Compromise means me agreeing with you. But I don't think that's what compromise is all about. It seems to me compromise is a little give and take on both sides in order to come to that position in the middle. And that just doesn't occur today. So I think it's tougher. And the other thing is that I think maybe 60 to 70 people are really able to sway the vast majority in the House of Representatives. Mm-hmm. And so the element of compromise just doesn't exist. You knew it maybe as early as 15 years ago.
I agree with you. I think the word compromise means you gave in. It's become ugly. But you were very successful at getting cooperation from both sides of the aisle. And as I pointed out earlier, you served both Clinton and Bush by making it clear to both leaders that you were going to put what was good for your country ahead of any partisan antics. And I don't understand why putting the greater good ahead of party antics is not part of the culture back in Washington, D.C. But listening to you, it would seem as though some of the connective tissue that made our leaders part of a community in Washington, D.C. has sort of broken down.
It has. It definitely has. Because, again, each other, very well. It's easier for them to just rip into you. They have no personal friendship at stake.
That's right. Well, they can rip into you because they're not going to see you at a barbecue this Sunday.
That's right. And so when, we did say, and my fine colleague from Idaho, or whatever the phrase might be, but today it's more a mocking kind of reference rather than one that really
is affectionate. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And what worries me about this is that it almost seems like it takes a threat like 9/11 or a meteor that's going to hit the Earth to cause us to get it together. And then we get it together for a short amount of time, and then we become polarized again. And this keeps us from acting preemptively, because if we have to have a threat face us in order to get it together, then we can never act preemptively to avoid a threat. And this is what I think is our greatest danger. Would you agree?
You're totally paralyzed at that point. And the whole issue of trying to... Today, I think there are members who purposely want to make sure that nothing gets done. Because if something gets done, it means someone gets credit for it. And I think a lot of people in the Congress today are there bent on making sure nobody gets credit for getting anything done. And so there's total paralysis. And so, sure, naming of a post office building for some local celebrity is fine, but major pieces of legislation are totally bottled up. And the other thing that's happening is if you don't agree, then they'll say, well, we'll find a candidate to run against you in the primary. And so people get very fearful of this whole issue of being challenged in the primary. And I used to always think, there are issues in which it's worth losing an election because you felt this way.
But you admit that you worried about retribution from the Democratic Party by taking accepting the nomination and the position of Secretary of Treasury in the Bush administration. Even you worried about retribution from your party, which I understand there wasn't any.
No, there wasn't any. But I remember when I voted for NAFTA, I did not make my final position known on that for a long time. But I did end up voting for NAFTA, which was essentially against what the labor unions wanted, what many in the Democratic Party wanted, and what many in the Japanese American community wanted, because they were afraid that there would be row crops and flowers, etc., coming in from Mexico to be very competitive to what was being produced by Japanese American farmers and families. But in the long term, I just felt NAFTA was worth voting for. And
well, that just speaks to your wisdom to keep that vote to yourself as long as possible. And I think that many times we just don't need to make such a big deal about what our positions are. Just study them and quietly make a decision. And we don't have to be standing in front of the media and whipping up people's emotions every opportunity that we get. Well, we are out of time. Before we say goodbye, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for your service to our country. Thank you, Mr. Mineta.
That was my honor, but thank you very, very much for the privilege of being on your program.
Thank you, and come back soon.
Absolutely. Thanks a million.
If your station is leaving us after this hour and you'd like to comment on today's program, you can email me at RebeccaCosta.com or send me a note on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. We're all over the internet, so drop me a line anytime and let me know how you felt about today's interview. And if you missed the full interview with Norman Mineta or any of our other guests, you can download previous programs on our website, Apple, iTunes, Podbean, and our new YouTube channel. Go to our YouTube channel channel, and especially download my Labor Day Challenge. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. I don't believe you have to have a government program for everything, including jobs creation. And I think if you take a look at the YouTube Labor Day channel or video, you'll be pleasantly surprised. I also want to take a moment to remind you that if you haven't ordered your copy of The Watchman's Rattle, please take a moment right now and go to RebeccaCosta.com and order your copy today. In addition to being a page turner that you won't be able to put down, all proceeds from book sales keep the Costa Report on the air. And you know, there's not much nonpartisan programming like the Costa Report available today. All you have to do is turn on the radio or television to witness that for yourself and see just how partisan the media's become. So do your part. Pick up a copy of The Watchman's Rattle. You know my guest next week as a columnist for the New York Times, co-anchor of CNBC's Squawk Box, and author of the best-selling book and HBO film Too Big to Fail. Don't miss the always provocative Andrew Ross Sorkin next week right here on the Costa Report, the one program you can count on week after week to put principles ahead of politics. Now stay tuned for the second hour of the Costa Report when we hear what you think about our interview with Norman Mineta and transportation security. If you listen to the news today, you might come away with the impression that our biggest challenges are political and economic. But if this were true, then countries which have different political and economic systems would be facing different problems. But they aren't. Every government and every nation is struggling with job creation, debt, immigration, climate change, terrorism, healthcare, energy, and wild swings in financial markets. So something else must be going on. That's why I'm inviting you to get a copy of The Watchman's Rattle, a book which shows how the Roman, Mayan, and Khmer empires once faced similar challenges and what we can do to avoid their fate. Visit RebeccaCosta.com today and get a copy of The Watchman's Rattle, because once you do, you'll never look at the world the same way.
Hey, Mom, why is the sky blue? Why don't animals talk? Why do dogs have wet noses? Why is an 11 pronounced 1T1?
Kids ask a lot of questions.
Why do I have a belly button?
But you don't have to know every answer.
Why is the ocean salty?
Because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent.
Why are there 50 states?
There are thousands of children in foster care who don't need every question answered.
Why is pizza round?
They just need you. For more information on how you can adopt, go to adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Have you ever watched a group of motorcycles roar on by and wondered, who are those guys? Where are they going? Well, now you can eavesdrop in on their biker world right here on KSCO 1080. A half hour of biker news, clues, and interviews with me, Biker Bob, and some of the motorcycling world's interesting celebrities. Biker Bob Radio on KSCO 1080.
Don't miss Biker Bob Radio every Sunday at 3:30 right here on AM 1080 KSCO. Remember, that's Sunday at 3:30 on KSCO.
From San Jose to Salinas, Red Hot News Talk, AM 1080 KSCO Santa Cruz.